37, where the new covenant is described as the everlasting covenant in Ezekiel 37:26, and also the Messianic covenant in Hebrews 13:20 is described as the everlasting covenant. So that's a covenant that the Messiah brings to both people, both Jews and Gentiles alike. Now, as far as to opening, this is verse 7, open blind eyes, set free the captives from prison, to release those of the dungeon who sit in darkness, paralleled directly to, so linked together as a description of the Messianic covenant. And remember, Isaiah 42 and 49 was proclaimed by Simeon, claiming that the Messiah had come to be a...
Veritas,
Yes.
I hate to interrupt you, brother, but you've given us like a book of information here.
Well, I'm trying to run.
No, I mean, you are just. This is just absolutely priceless in class, and I appreciate it. I like to get Kenny to respond to some of this, and then
can I say one thing in closing?
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Kenny, do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I'm sorry for Kenny. I'm really sorry for overwhelming you. Something like this needs to be. But I didn't really mention Kedar and Salah, and I wanted to say something about that really quick. Kedar was the descendants of, now it certainly is referring to Arabia, okay, but Kedar was the son, I'm sorry, it was the descendants of Kedar, and you know who I'm talking about there, okay, it was Ishmael's son, who was in northern Arabia, the cities of Kedar. And Salah, and if you go to 2 Kings 14:7, Salah was understood to be the capital of the Edomites. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the mountain down to the mountain, the universal Messiah, because he will affect both the mountainous region, the coastlands, the deserts, and so forth. You see the description in Isaiah 42. So while it does refer to Arabia, it's just a general application of the effect of the Messiah that the Messiah will bring. And like I said, Salah, biblically speaking, had nothing to do with a mountain down in Medina. I mean, it was the capital of Edom, okay, in the Bible. So that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, man. I'm done.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. That's there's a lot there, and I'm going to give Kenny some time to respond to that.
Sure.
We have a couple other people that would like to get on before we close out for the day. Kenny, go on ahead.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start with where he ended up in regards to the Salem Mountain. You'll see, if you Google the Salem Mountain, you will see that it is indeed in the very heart of Medina, which is right there in Saudi Arabia. But he made a number of references to the Messiah and the verses in Isaiah that are referencing the Messiah. And obviously he believes that the Messiah is referring to Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him. And I believe that Jesus is the Messiah indeed. I don't necessarily believe that these verses are talking about Jesus, and I don't believe they're talking about Jesus, nor would Rabbi Tovia Singer, for instance, if he was on this panel, a very prominent Jewish rabbi. He would tell you the exact opposite. He would tell you these verses have nothing to do with Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him. So what we see here, once again, we see the criteria that's not being utilized for the Prophet Muhammad that is being utilized for Jesus. And it's an unbalanced scale in this situation where we're taking verses in Isaiah and trying to apply them to Jesus, but whenever the Muslims want to come and apply them to Muhammad, there's a big fuss made about that. But we don't see the name Jesus in any of these verses, and all one can do is try to through cognitive bias, try to imply that these verses are referring to their particular belief. And once again, all these issues are within the Bible, where we have the Jews taking these same verses that we're discussing, and they will give you one position, the Christians will give you another position, and as Muslims, we're simply in the middle trying to we have the Quran, it's unaltered. We don't have this issue in the Quran. But the point I'm trying to make is that, the brother was trying to imply that these verses are talking about the Messiah, talking about Jesus. And, we see the same thing happening with Muhammad. And so just as the Jews would reject your everything that the brother just said regarding Jesus, although he didn't use the name Jesus, but I'm sure that's what he was implying. The Jews would come along and try to discredit everything he said based on these very same verses. And so he's trying to discredit the Prophet Muhammad, just as I mentioned before, based on these very same verses. In regards to the Song of Solomon, it was claimed that these verses are talking about the wife of Solomon, but just the verses right before, it has nothing to do with the woman. Matter of fact, it's talking about a man. So I'm going to start at just verse 13, just because that's what I'm looking at right now. His cheeks are like a bed of spices, banks of scented herbs. His lips are lilies, dripping liquid mirth. His hands are rods of gold set with beryl. His body is carved in ivory, blah, blah, blah. You know, so, and it goes down to his mouth is most sweet. Yes, he's altogether lovely. This is my beloved. This is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. So these verses aren't talking about any woman or any, I don't know why two different people had made that claim about the Song of Solomon. It has nothing to do with a woman in those particular verses, or the ones before or right after. So actually the one right after does say, where is your beloved gone, O fairest among women? But it's changing the subject through the verse. So in regards to Kedar, once again, Kedar is the bloodline of Ishmael, and the people referred to in 42:11, it says, let the wilderness and its towns raise their voices. Let the settlements where Kedar lives. Where are the settlements where Kedar lives? The gentleman had mentioned that Kedar is the very heart of Arabia. Let the settlements where Kedar live rejoice. Let the people of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the mountaintops. So the Selah mountain, once again. So in this 42:11, Isaiah 42:11, it talks about let the wilderness and its town raise their voices. Let the settlements where Kedar lives. Kedar is the direct descendant of Ishmael, his son. He's his son. Let the people of Selah, the Selah mountain, sing for joy. If Kedar, the brother mentioned that Kedar is in Arabia, the very heart of Arabia, it's talking about the same people. Let the settlements where Kedar lives rejoice. Let the people of Selah, meaning the people of Kedar, let them sing for joy. Let them cry from the mountaintops. Once again, Kedar is, of the bloodline of Ishmael. The people of Selah, the Selah mountain, is right there in Arabia. These verses are talking about a prophet from Arabia. There's no question about it. Google, if anyone wants to right now, you Google Selah mountain, and you'll see Selah mountain is in the heart of Saudi Arabia. It's in the heart of Medina. One of the major cities of the Prophet Muhammad.
Kenny, I think that Veritas Seeker, and I've unmuted his mic, I think he referenced a Talmudic commentary on that where Selah was, and it's not in Arabia. Go ahead. I think he said it was Edom.
Yeah,
Google said
it was a capital. Selah was a capital of Edom. It's 2 Kings 14:7.
Google Selah mountain. Right now, anyone watching?
No, but it's not a mountain. It's a city. It's not referring to a. It's referring to people.
In 42.
Why would it refer to it? Go ahead, man.
Let the people of Selah. Let the people of Selah. Lo and behold, where Kedar lives. Where Kedar lives he's of Arabia, like the gentleman mentioned. He is of Arabia. This is in the heart of Arabia. The Selah mountain is in the heart of Arabia. It's right there in the heart of Medina. And so this is clear cut.
Okay, but
so this is clear cut. It's talking about a particular individual and his people, the people of Selah, the people where Kedar lives, the settlements of Kedar, and so
villages. It's referring to villages and cities, Kenny.
Right.
These are villages of Kedar. That's in northern Arabia where they settled, and the inhabitants of Selah were not. It's not talking about the inhabitants of a mountain. It's talking about the inhabitants of a city.
No one lives. I mean, lives on
biblically, it's a city. It's not a mountain.
No one lives on the mountain. They live in the region of the mountain. They live at the bottom, the base of the mountain. Of course, they don't live on the mountain. No one made the claim that they live on the mountain. But it does say, let the people of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the mountaintops. This implies that there are people in the city that are on the outskirts of the mountain, Just like if you're in Colorado, you don't live up on the mountain, but you see mountains all around you. Absolutely, you live in the city. So let the people sing for joy. Let them shout from their very mountaintops. What mountaintop? The Mount of Selah, right there in the heart of Arabia. So
wouldn't that make better sense, Kenny?
Well,
if he's referencing Second Kings, if he's referencing already another book of the Old Testament that references the same city, and the Second Kings, correct me if I'm wrong here, Veritas, because I was listening very carefully to what you were saying. Second Kings reference the inhabitants of Selah, or the city of Selah. Wouldn't it make Wouldn't it make just as equitable sense that Isaiah would also be referencing a known location versus a location that is outside of Edom, or is outside, or that's actually in Arabia? Would that make sense that he would be doing that when we already know known location?
Yeah, of course. And also, let me see if this is correct. 16. Let me see if Isaiah 6. I thought I had it up. Maybe I don't have it up. No, I think I deleted it actually. But there was another reference. Go ahead.
Let me just present a question real quick. Let's just use simple logic and reasoning. In Isaiah 42:11, it says, "Let the settlements where Kedar lives rejoice." So obviously we're talking about Kedar, the son of Ishmael. He lives in Arabia. They're in Arabia. And let the people of Selah sing for joy. So are you brothers trying to imply that this verse is talking about two totally separate groups of people, but it mentions Kedar and the settlements of Kedar, but then suddenly jumps to some other location, Selah City?
Oh, absolutely.
But
yes, absolutely. Because look at how. Well, wait. Let me. You asked me a question.
Let me finish.
You asked me a question.
Right, and I'm gonna allow you to answer it. But as the verse ends, it says, "Let the people of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the mountaintops." Okay, so the people that you're trying to imply are Second Kings. I haven't even looked at that verse, but this is clear cut. These are people in Selah that have mountains around them, and
it's not connected. Mountaintop and Selah, it's not connected.
It's not connected. So this,
no.
Okay. So you're saying that this Isaiah 40,
no, this
is talking about two different groups of people, but it's talking about Selah, which is, we have a Selah mountain in Arabia where Kedar lives.
Okay.
And the fact that they're going to shout from the mountaintops. You're trying to tell me.
No.
Guys.
Look, can I break in and answer his question, please?
Wait. Can I just interject here real quick here? I just
That's
Googled Salem Mountain. Goodbye. I just Googled Salem Mountain like you suggested, and Salem Mountain is in Pennsylvania. It's in Pennsylvania. All the hits come up Pennsylvania. I just used your logic. So I Googled Salem Mountain. You said Google it. It's in Pennsylvania.
Okay, Eric.
There you go.
I got Vladimir. Okay, Robert.
This is why I don't deal with that guy. This is why I don't deal with that guy. This doesn't imply that there's not a Salem Mountain in whatever state that he mentioned. But I assure you,
let's let Veritas answer the question that was addressed, please.
I assure you, if Eric, you allow me to share my screen, you'll see that the Salem Mountain is right
Kenny,
there.
there's a button. Kenny, there's a button at the bottom. Can you see the bottom of your screen? Do you see a button that says share?
Yeah, I'm going to share it right now.
Okay, there you go.
And this is why I don't deal with him, because he's simply irrational and illogical. So go ahead and take a look at this.
Well, just 2 points. I just want to break in, if you don't mind. This is referring to the national, international effect that the Messiah is going to have, because he's a light for the nations. Okay, he's a covenant for the people of Israel and a light for the nations, just as Isaiah 49 repeats. And then it describes the regions, the geographical regions. And in other words, this is the culmination of different regions that the Messiah is. It's just an analogy showing that the Messiah is going to affect different regions regarding the nations. And the nations are talking about Edom. It's going to talk about Kedar. These are nations. Okay, it's not referring to a mountain. It's referring to the people of Kedar and the capital of Edom. The people where they dwelled in the capital. It's referring to the nations that the Messiah is going to affect. And here's the last point. if you say this is the Messiah, excuse me, if you say this is Muhammad, it's going to proclaim his truth to the people of Kedar. Well, Christianity had already spread down through Saudi Arabia before that. Why not Christianity? There were major establishments of Christian religion centuries before Muhammad that had come down and proclaimed the gospel. And also in the New Testament, the gospel is proclaimed. The gospel is proclaimed in here. Hang on just a minute. I want to show you this. It's proclaimed in Acts 2:11. Peter preached to Arab traders that had come from Arabia. In Acts 2:11, preached the gospel. Paul went down into Arabia in Galatians 1:17. So, you know, why would you exclude the Christian witness to Arabia that also had spread throughout Arabia? In fact, I think the largest Christian community was in the very southern tip, the very tip of the southern part of Arabia. It had spread all the way down to the very southernmost part of Arabia, in Najaj, I think it was. I don't know if I'm not pronouncing that correct. It's Najran. That's what it is. Najran. You could also make that argument. So why would you exclude that?
Okay, so let me ask you this question: are y'all able to see my screen? I can't actually see it for some reason right now. Can you see my screen about the Salem Mountain?
Yes.
Okay, so you see that it is right there in the heart of Arabia, Saudi Arabia in Medina, correct?
Right, but
yeah, Alhamdulillah. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
I know this, Ken.
Okay.
I know this, Kenny. I prepared.
Right, so the reason I brought that up is because Robert, once again, this will be the last time I ever engage in the show if Robert is part of the show. Period. He's simply a ill man.
Well, everybody's passionate.
So alhamdulillah. No, he's beyond. It's not a matter of passion. He's illogical and he's childish. So alhamdulillah.
Goodbye, Kenny.
Anyways,
Kenny.
goodbye.
Kenny. Goodbye. Kenny, goodbye. Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye, Kenny.
Okay.
Robert, come on now.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We can you know.
Let's just stay on topic. Let's just stay on topic.
So, goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye, Kenny, because I guarantee you I will.
These guys have been respectful other than him.
Goodbye, Kenny. I guarantee you I will be here next week. You won't be. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.
Can I say something?
Goodbye.
Kenny?
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Islam is the answer.
Can I say something to Kenny real fast?
Thank you for proving Islam is the answer. Alhamdulillah. So back to Isaiah 42:11 to imply that this verse is.
Wait, he's still here? He's still here? Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye. I'm calling your bluff. Goodbye. Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye.
You know, what I'm going to allow you to do is
I'm calling your bluff. Goodbye, Kenny.
What I'm going to allow you to do is
because I guarantee you I will be here next week. I guarantee you, if you stick to your word, you won't be here next week.
I don't come
Goodbye,
here.
Kenny.
Goodbye, Kenny. Next week anyway.
Goodbye, Kenny.
I never said I was
Goodbye, Kenny.
next week.
Goodbye, Kenny.
I don't
come on, bro. Come on, bro.
Goodbye, Kenny.
Hey,
Relax.
guys,
Okay.
we've got this on the radio.
Don't say guys.
Goodbye, Kenny. Goodbye.
Guys.
Robert, I want to get to another caller. Veritas, or Vladimir. I'm sorry, Vladimir. Vladimir's had his hand up for the better part of 3 days here. And I was told that you wanted to come on. So go on ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Kenny, is that
He
right?
just left. Oh, he's still here? You left?
No, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Vlad. Go ahead.
Excellent.
Kenny here?
So,
I'm here.
excellent. So there's been quite a lot of things I wanted to talk about, but since most of you touched upon them, I want to speak a bit on the Holy Spirit and the Comforter. Kenny, is it right that you believe that the Comforter that Jesus sends, this is Muhammad?
I do.
So in John 14:15, okay. So in general Islamic theology, do prophets send other prophets? Is it a theologically correct position to say a prophet can send another prophet?
Well, these are the works of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from what we believe, and I thank you for your question, we believe that the prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, ascended to heaven. So we don't know what state that he's in. All we can assume is that he's either in a state of he's actually in heaven, alive and breathing, or that he is. Who knows? Only Allah truly knows. No human being can answer that question.
According to Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, can somebody other than Allah send prophets?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does many things, and he uses people to do those things. So if Allah has decreed for someone to give someone else an order, such as the angel Jibril coming to various prophets throughout the centuries, throughout humankind, then he's given that person or that individual, that being, a direction to do so. Inevitably, that command comes from Allah, regardless. So it's a viewpoint.
Okay, so you don't seem to have the traditional Muslim position. Then let me ask you this: since it is the case that Jesus sends the Holy Spirit, who is in your case here, you believe Muhammad, was it the case that Jesus sent Angel Gabriel to Muhammad? Or did he, for example, ordain Allah to send Gabriel to Muhammad? How did that chain of isnad work?
For one, for you to claim that I don't follow traditional Muslim belief, that's a fallacious claim to make, for one. That's a fallacious claim to make. For one, we know that there's a multitude of different types of belief. Primarily, we can talk about the Metizelites and the Kedarites and
which Islamic school?
Different schools of thought.
Which Sunni Islamic school?
The fundamental facts are that we believe that Allah is one. We accept all of the prophets. We believe that everything that happens is only by the qadr of Allah, the will of Allah. So if Allah deemed fit to send an angel or another human being or the wind or a burning bush, in the case of Moses, to give a directive or an order, alhamdulillah, that's by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inevitably, that event transpired because of Allah, because he deemed it to decreed it to happen. So
okay.